Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to do some winter sowing and I figured I would explain the process to you. Winter sowing is when we start seeds usually outside in the winter time. Now that looks a little different for everybody in everybody's area. Up here in upstate New York, much closer to Canada than New York City, I am in zone 4B with a last frost date somewhere around May 20th, but I really wouldn't put anything frost tender like peppers, tomatoes, any of that stuff in the ground until Memorial Day, if not a little after, depending on the weather. We have a pretty short growing season, so we try to extend it any way we can. One of the ways we do that is starting seeds inside or winter sowing. Winter sowing we can do with a lot of our perennial seeds. That way we're able to start them outside, not under grow lights and not take up space. And we don't really have to do any care. Once we put the seed in the container and put the container outside in a sunny location, that's all we have to do. We can let it snow on it, rain on it, maybe check it once in a while depending on how much moisture you get to make sure that it's at least getting enough moisture to stay moist inside. But that's all there is to it. So what you need a container. Clear containers work great. The other things that work really well are old milk jugs. Anything that's kind of like a translucent. I don't think any of the milk jugs that are like a solid white plastic would work because you want light to get in. It's going to work kind of as a mini greenhouse. You'll need a box knife to cut your container. You're going to cut the container so that it has a hinge to it. Just makes it easier to work with. You need your seeds, cold hardy seeds. These are some lupin seeds that I saved last year. And then I have some Rebecca seeds. I have scissors out here to cut my tape. You're going to need tape because you'll put tape around the container when you're done planting everything in it to help seal it back up and create that greenhouse effect. You don't need any of the lids on the containers. You need some soil. I have some potting mix. I think garden mix compacts a little too much, so potting mix is a good choice. Seed starting mix, a little too expensive for my blood for this kind of project. You need water. Bucket to put your soil in, then you can add your water and make sure it is moistened. And then I have wooden skewers. The reason I have these, I live in a wind farm and it is always windy up here, like always. There's a reason that they surrounded us with 50 windmills. So anything I put outside pretty much has to be nailed down. So what I'll do is I'll add drain holes to the bottom of my container like anybody should. And I'll add a wooden skewer to something to kind of anchor it into the ground. Put it in an angle. It's just something to help a little bit. I'm going to put these in my garden, which is enclosed with a 6-foot deer fence because I live in the middle of nowhere. And the deer love to eat anything and everything around here. Even stuff I'm told that they don't like, they love. So, in order to get started, take your container. Take your sharp object. Usually if anything has a handle, I kind of let the handle be the hinge point. It just seems to work best. You're going to slice all the way around your container. Once we get around, we're going to stop so that we have that hinge point. We're then going to take the container. We're going to take our moistened soil, add this to our container. Oh, before we do that, pause. Before we do that, you're going to want to make sure to add some drain holes. I usually cut some slits in the bottom of mine so that way moisture can get out. So if we have excess water, we don't want it sitting in the container. It'll rot out the roots, rot out the plant. So add our drain holes, add our soil, then we can add our seeds. Once I have all that in, I usually take my skewer after that, And I'll at least put it down into one of the drain holes. Broke that one, so that one's not going to work. Be a different one. Okay, so we'll put that down in there like that. Like I said, I have a whole bunch. So as I break them, I can just replace them. Put that down. I'll put that in an angle when I stick that in the ground. And then that way, it's one more thing to kind of help anchor it to the ground. Okay. So I have a bunch of these filled with soil already. Once you fill them with soil, I recommend drying your hands if you're going to work with really small seeds like Rebecca seeds. These seeds are super teeny tiny and they will stick to your hands if they're wet. Makes it really, really hard to plant really, really tiny seeds if they won't come off. Rebecca seeds only need to be like a 1/16 of an inch, if that, into the soil, so I kind of sprinkle them in, and then I'll tamp down the soil. And I'll call that good. Do another one because I still have some seeds left. The other thing, you want to make sure that you don't overseed these containers. It's really easy to get kind of carried away and say, oh, so many of these are, there's so much space. There is. There's also not. By the time you get to planting these out, you kind of wait until they've grown, I'm going to say about halfway up the container. And at that point, they kind of make one big mass, and you can split them apart, but if you're going to split them apart, they have a little bit of transplant shock. I found it easier to just plant them as a plant. So when I make a container, that's kind of going to be my plant of Rebecca. I get those going, and then the next year I might divide them for a perennial. So once we have those in there, we're then going to find the edge of the tape, which is always a challenging thing. Put the lid down and then run tape along the edge. I usually make a couple wraps just so that I know I make good contact to the top and the bottom. Take my scissors, cut my tape, kind of seal it up. Now, if you have a lot of seeds that you're starting, or a lot of different kinds, I would take a garden marker, not a Sharpie, an actual specific garden marker, and write your variety on the top. I'm really only going to be starting Rebecca seeds and lupin seeds. If you've ever seen a lupin seedling, you would know it's a lupin seedling, so I'm not too worried about needing to know what variety. I may pick up some daisies, some Shasta daisies, and start some of those if I can find some, or if I get to the store at a reasonable time. But even then, I'm not too worried. The project I plan to do with these, doesn't matter if it's going to be Rebecca or the Shasta daisies that come up. So, and like I said, don't overseed. I kind of plan with mine that I'm going to plant them as one whole plant. So I'm kind of making a potted plant. That's pretty much all there is to it. Any questions? Leave them in the comments. Good to see everybody again. Looking forward to making some more gardening content, some more farmette content, and I hope you have a wonderful day.